When my daughter-in-law told me I wasn't part of the family anymore, I didn't cry. I reached for the one paper she forgot existed. That single page turned the tables faster than she could say lawyer. My silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. The real story starts right here. I'm Eveline Marchand, 68, born and raised on the quieter side of Annapolis. The air outside that winter afternoon smelled faintly of salt and exhaust, and when I walked into Vail and Associates, my knees reminded me that heels and grief don't pair well. Inside, the conference room looked more like a showroom. Polished oak, chrome handles, everything too shiny to feel honest. A bowl of peppermints sat in the middle of the table. No one touched them. I set my purse down carefully, pulled out my notepad and my pill case. Because women my age plan for everything. Even blood pressure spikes during a will reading. This isn't about the money, I told myself. It's about what he left unsaid. Callista Vrain, my daughter-in-law, sat across from me, dressed for television, scrolling through her phone like she was approving a photo shoot. She smiled without warmth. The lawyer began too fast, his voice slick and practiced. Non-probate assets, remainder to heirs, household effects. It was all numbers and legal air. "Could you slow down, honey?" I asked, soft but firm. "We don't all sprint for a living," Callista laughed politely, the kind of laugh people use when they think they've already won. "We've all been through a lot. Let's be efficient." I folded my hands. "Let silence weigh the room," my husband used to say. "Never sign on a feelin'." I breathed through my nose, counted to 3, then came the rustle. Callista reaching into her folder, pulling out an envelope. She slid it across the glass with 2 fingers. "You'll want this. Eveline. For lunch." I stared at the white rectangle, thin as spite. "What is it?" "Your portion," she said. $15. The words hit like ice water. Even the associate froze mid-breath. I repeated, low and clear. 15? The way churchwomen repeat a lie until it folds under its own shame. She looked pleased, almost radiant in her cruelty. I pushed the envelope back toward her. "You'll need it more than I do." My voice didn't crack. I wouldn't give her that. The lawyer coughed, mumbled something about continuing to the next page. I leaned back, took a sip of water, and fixed my eyes on the corner of the document stack where my name should have been, at home. The sun was sliding down the bay, that honey-colored light that makes empty houses louder. My dining table still had the faint outline of my husband's laptop. I sat where I always sat, except tonight. The head chair had been moved. My name card, the one from his memorial, had been tucked against the sideboard, replaced by a fresh tag that read, "Guests." I almost laughed. "Family dinner, immediate members only." A text buzzed across my screen. "Please don't make it awkward, and no sender name, just precision." I set the phone down, whispered to the air, "They forget who paid for that table." I reheated leftover casserole, the one from Mrs. Denton down the street, and ate at the head like nothing had changed. Each bite steadied me. I wasn't going anywhere. Later, I opened my yellow legal pad, dates, names, where the copies live. That's what I wrote. Then into my voicemail. Document envelope, white, offered today. Witnesses present. A record of truth. I glanced at the folder labeled Appendix J, M. I didn't open it yet. Patience was armor. "Don't swing first, Eve," I murmured. "Let her miss on her own." The house creaked with the tide. I turned on the lamp by the window, my lighthouse, and waited. Then my phone vibrated again. Subject line only. Beneficiary change notice. No greeting, no signature. Just a blinking PDF icon, daring me to open it. I looked at my husband's photo, smiled faintly. "If they want me gone," I said, "they'll have to read the next page first." I woke up before dawn, the subject line of that email still pulsing behind my eyes. I didn't open it again. I didn't need to. I just needed the truth. And that meant paper. I made oatmeal, the kind with brown sugar and raisins, took my morning pills, and jotted a note on the fridge. "Call insurance about property rider. Measure twice. Move once." My husband used to say, I printed the email header and slipped it into my folder. Careful not to touch the PDF. Outside, frost rimmed the windshield. I started the car remotely. Heat low, gospel radio murmuring through static. Purse packed, ID. Medicare card, power of attorney copy, notepad, pen. I whispered as I locked the door. Let the paper swing. The white envelope from yesterday still sat on the dining table, unopened. I left it there like evidence. The Severn Trust and Savings Branch opened at 9. The lobby smelled faintly of disinfectant and burnt coffee, rope stanchions, an FDIC poster, pamphlets about beneficiary updates, even a rack of lollipops for kids. I took a ticket, number 42. A young greeter asked if I had an appointment. No, sweetheart, I'll wait, I said, clutching my folio. She smiled, too kind for the hour, offered water. I declined, but kept the napkin she handed me. Names matter. The clock read 9:12. Across the room, a woman whispered beneficiary to a clerk. My stomach tightened. I straightened my back and waited for my number. A private banker finally called me in. She looked maybe 40, tired eyes behind polished glasses. Good morning, Mrs. Marchand, she said. How can I help? I set the printed email header in front of her. Your system flagged me, I said calmly. Beneficiary change notice? She typed. Keys clicking like tiny hammers. Her brows drew together. May I verify your identity? She asked. I answered each question. First Street, last 4 digits, maiden name. She nodded. It shows an attempt to submit a beneficiary update last week. The word attempt landed hard. I'll need to pull the record from back office, she said. I folded my hands. I'll wait right here. When she returned, her tone had shifted. The request failed pending verification, she said. Relief and anger tangled in my chest. Could I have a copy of that notice? I asked. She hesitated, but printed the public sections. We both initialed the log. The paper was warm when she handed it over. I felt steadier. Then she opened a digital scan of the attempted submission. The signature looked wrong, edges too clean, like cut and paste. The date was typed, not handwritten. That's not your signature, correct? She asked. It isn't, I said. Her monitor reflected in her glasses, blue and cold. The email came from a general inbox, she added. Attachment labeled beneficiary _update _final to PDF. I smiled faintly. My husband always said the second final is never final. The submission time read 7:43 p.m. Friday. The branch had been closed. Someone used online access. She couldn't tell me who. That's above my clearance, she said softly. I nodded. Then just print me the ticket number. She did. I wrote it twice in my notebook and circled it. Paper doesn't lie. We moved to the records desk. The clerk recited a formal script. We'll place a protective hold on beneficiary changes for 10 business days. I asked for a freeze until I appeared in person with notarized ID. She added it to the file. I requested duplicate paper statements and confirmation by mail. She handed me a fraud hotline card, and I made her sign her first name on it. Thank you, darling, I said, voice even. I'm holding on to every page. Back in the car, heater humming low, I opened the PDF. My address was off by 1 number, a trick to reroute mail. The witness line was blank but predated, fonts mismatched, the seal tilted. I recorded a voice memo describing each flaw. Then my phone buzzed, a new email. Appointment confirmation, Vale and Associates, Friday 2 p.m. I hadn't scheduled it. Someone had. I called the firm. The receptionist confirmed. Miss Vrain added you. My pulse steadied. Please note, I said. I will attend, and I'll be bringing documents. I didn't text her to argue. I sent one line. Please direct all estate matters through the firm. No signature. No softness. When I pulled into my driveway, the sky was slate gray. A manila envelope waited on the mat. No stamp. Just perfume faintly familiar. Inside was the altered form, printed in color and a sticky note. We can settle this quietly. See, I stood there, heartbeat calm, breath slow. You blinked first, I murmured. I slid the evidence into a freezer bag, sealed it, dated it. Then I placed it in the file drawer marked Storm. If she thinks I'll chase her, I whispered. She never learned my rule. Let the next page do the talking. I arrived 5 minutes early, coat buttoned high against the harbor wind. The hostess asked, "Are you at the Vrain party?" Her tone had that polished politeness of someone who already knew the answer. The table stretched long across the window, Callista's end seat marked by a handbag and phone. My place card read simply, Eveline, not Mrs. Marchand, just my first name, like a temp worker at her own family dinner. I set my tote on the floor, glanced at the menu. Market price, fish. Split checks policy bolded at the bottom. A server filled my water before I spoke. "Separate receipts, please," I said with a smile that told her I meant it. The folio stayed zipped in my bag, phone on silent. I noticed who avoided looking at me. Everyone. Callista breezed in 15 minutes late, perfume before words, cheeks lifted in air-kiss greetings. "Sorry, traffic was impossible," she said. Though her car was already parked out front, her eyes skimmed my cardigan. Quick judgment disguised as charm. "She'll just have water," she told the server. I corrected her. Calm and direct. "Decaf coffee, black." She hesitated, then smiled too brightly. "We should be fiscally responsible." Eveline. That name again, sharp like a tag. I leaned back. "Sugar. Thrift isn't just for other people." A cousin tried to lighten the air with gossip about a local fundraiser gone wrong. I let it pass. Words reveal less than hands, and Callista's hands were restless, drumming invisible beats against her wineglass stem. When the bread arrived, she reached into her purse and slid an envelope beside my plate. "So you won't feel left out," she said, smiling for the table's approval. Inside were $15 in singles, folded tight, and a sticky note. For lunch. I didn't move. "Bless your heart," I said, smooth as honey, not kind at all. Someone across the table laughed, nervous. The server froze mid-pour. I placed the envelope back before her with 2 fingers. "You keep it, darling. Looks like you'll need small bills." The color in her cheeks darkened, but the smile held. Performers never break character. She recovered fast, lifting her glass. "We're consolidating assets, streamlining things." I tilted my head. "Before or after the verification holds?" The table hushed. She blinked. "Excuse me?" "The bank flagged something yesterday," I said, voice still low. "System caught it before I had to—" A cousin muttered, "Eveline, don't make this awkward." I smiled. Awkward lives where truth is unwelcome. I laid my pen on the table, silver barrel glinting under the candlelight. "I'm not signing anything tonight." The server returned with the check. I requested itemized receipts for everyone. The air steadied. Paper brings order. Callista's bracelet jingled once, betraying her agitation. I spoke so everyone could hear. "From this point on, all estate matters go through Osric Vale." Murmurs rippled. "If it's not in writing, it didn't happen," I continued. Then, quiet but deliberate, "and altering forms is what the state calls elder financial abuse." The word abuse cracked the air. A chair scraped. Someone cleared their throat. I added gently, "We done with theater. Baby, I came here to eat." The server blinked, caught between awe and sympathy. I ordered the salmon, extra lemon. Taking control of a meal can feel like reclaiming a kingdom. Callista switched tactics, smiles and selfies. "Let's get one for the family chat." I raised a hand. "No photos, please." A cousin leaned in. "We're family, Eve." I answered. Family pays attention when the pen comes out. The line drew a few uneasy smiles, a few downcast eyes. The manager quietly placed his card near my plate. I nodded in thanks. "Just in case," he whispered. I tipped the server well, bills crisp and straight, quiet respect between working people. Callista pocketed her own envelope, face fixed, but the smirk no longer reached her eyes. As we stood, my phone buzzed. Memorial service update, speakers revised, a photo loaded, a row of candles. The one by my name card was unlit. I exhaled slowly. "You just told on yourself," I murmured. Outside, the harbor wind bit my cheeks as I dialed the number listed on the message. No one answered. The sky reflected off the water, dark and glassy. If she wants darkness, I said under my breath. "We'll let a room full of people watch who snuffs the light." The next afternoon, I drove to St. Mary's in a gray coat, gloves lined with fleece, and the same steady breath I'd practiced all week. The chapel doors opened with the old brass squeal I remembered from my husband's own father's service. Winter sunlight poured through stained glass, cool blues and reds that turned faces into strangers. I could smell polish, candle wax, and coffee from the fellowship hall next door. A printed card marked the front pew, "Reserved Family." My name, however, had been moved to a side pew, one row back. I didn't say a word. I folded the card in half and slid it into my purse. He'd see me better from the center anyway. I turned my phone to airplane mode and tucked tissues into my sleeve, a habit learned from years of long services and longer silences. The organist began softly. The first hymn floated up, familiar but hollow. I read the program and paused. Callista's name listed under Family Remarks. Mine wasn't there. "Well," I whispered, "that tells the story already." When the candlelighters passed, each wick burned steady until they reached my pew. Mine flickered once, then went out. No draft, no movement, no reason. The room hushed for the half a beat, enough for sympathy to turn into spectacle. I felt the eyes, the pity, but I didn't move. "I don't need a microphone to remember my husband," I murmured. "Just for me." I struck a wooden taper, relit the candle, and let the flame find its height again. The air smelled faintly of sulfur, and I imagined him smiling. He always said, "You light up any room, Eve." Callista began her speech, voice smooth, phrasing polished. She talked about their shared dreams, their journey, how we built a life of purpose. She skipped right over my name, like I'd never existed. I traced her words with my thumb against the paper, each one a tiny erasure. The back of the program carried the Vrain Foundation logo. No mention of me, of us, of the years that built that fortune. I thought, rewrite the ceremony, rewrite the will. The pattern was becoming clear. I didn't interrupt. Silence. After all, documents better than protest. A neighbor caught my eye and shrugged, embarrassed. That was confirmation enough. People had heard the gossip and believed it. Afterward, the crowd drifted to the fellowship hall. Lemonade in dispensers, supermarket cookies, legacy fund jar with a heart sticker. A volunteer stopped me at the kitchen entrance. "Family only back here." I stepped aside, smiled kindly. "Of course." I placed my paper plate at a corner table, away from the chatter, where I could see the exits and the coat rack. Callista's tote sat open on a nearby chair, expensive leather, monogrammed. A silver USB drive dangled by its zipper, labeled slides_final. The kind of label careless people forget to rename. A teen volunteer nearly brushed it into the trash while clearing napkins. "Honey," I said, stepping forward, "mind if I grab a few clean ones first?" I lifted the stack, and the USB slid closer to my shoe. Cleanup went fast after that. Someone gathered leftover programs. The tote disappeared, but the USB remained under the chair. I bent down, used a folded napkin to pick it up. No fingerprints, no mistakes. "Whose is this?" I asked. A cousin said, "Probably media." Avoiding my gaze, I turned to the event coordinator. "Could you jot your initials and the time on this note?" She hesitated, then wrote them down. I sealed the drive inside a small zip-top bag from my purse and labeled it St. Mary's Memorial, 415 Persimmon. Lost things tell stories when people won't. Outside. Dusk carried the kind of cold that makes your bones remember every winter. I slid the bag into my folio, right between the program and the bank flag folder. Callista appeared, coat draped elegantly over her shoulders. "You looked emotional in there," she said, like it was an accusation. I met her eyes. "Grief looks like remembering. Editing looks different." Her smile faltered. "Let's keep the peace. Evelyn." I zipped my purse. "Peace isn't hush. Peace is truth." She glanced toward the volunteers, then away. I left before she could answer. In my car. Heater on low? I sat until my heartbeat slowed. I texted Osric Vale's office. "I'm bringing an external drive I found at the memorial. The reply came fast. Friday 2 p.m. Confirmed. The screen glow reflected off the windshield, faint but steady. They changed the program, I whispered, resting my hand on the folio. They tried to change the story. We'll change the record. I placed the USB beside my pen, and for the first time all week, the light did not go out. I arrived at Vale & Associates 5 minutes early, the folio pressed against my coat, everything labeled and dated. The receptionist smiled the way people do when they recognize a name from a case file. "Please print me a copy of anything I sign," I said. She nodded, stapled my visitor badge to a paper sleeve, and gestured to the waiting area. The copier hummed in the background. Coffee drifted from the break room, warm against the scent of toner. I confirmed the appointment under Evelyn Marchand, my name, not theirs. My phone stayed on silent, location services off. I sat where I could see both exits. A framed quote on the wall read, "If it's not written, it's just weather." I whispered it under my breath like a prayer. Osric Vale stepped out precisely at 2. "Let's look at what you brought," he said, motioning me to the conference room. His tone carried the calm of someone who trusts paper more than promises. I handed him the sealed bag containing the USB and the bank ticket. He photographed the evidence, logged the time, and wrote both our initials across the label. "Proper custody," he murmured. On his laptop, the mirrored screen displayed folders, slides final, a few hidden temp files, timestamped during the memorial. He opened the bank PDF next, circled a phrase, non-standard POA clause. Another address-digit mismatch. "Whoever drafted this knew enough to fake neatness," he said. "They left fingerprints anyway." I met his eyes. "Then let their sloppiness do the talking." He smiled faintly. Respect without pity. He crossed to a tall cabinet, retrieved the official estate binder, tabs marked A, T, C, D. "Where's B?" I asked. He flipped to the gap. A faint rectangle of staple marks showed removal. "Real paper surgery." "Appendix B," he said softly, "is gone." He jotted on a blue sticky, "Request certified copy." Appendix audit, dated, signed, and then tore off a duplicate. "You keep the twin note. Twins don't vanish." I slipped it into my wallet. We mapped the steps. Bank freeze confirmation, clerk request, public witness reading. "Next page, public eyes," he said. "Let's make sure no one edits the truth again." A paralegal entered with a scanner cart. The funeral program, my omission in print, fed through the tray. "Attached to narrative of exclusion," Osric directed. We drafted 3 letters, one to the bank, one to the estate clerk, one to opposing counsel marked "Preserve Evidence." I insisted on certified mail. "Paper and postage," I said. "Never ghost you." He nodded. "We're not fighting feelings, we're filing facts." He printed copies, let me initial margins beside every statement in my voice. No summaries, no assumptions. When he handed me the checklist, I saw my future written in bullet points. Fraud hotline, trusted contact, document doorstep envelope. Osric leaned back. "We can stop the quiet manipulation if we bring sunlight." Monday morning. Courthouse steps. Brief, factual. I hesitated. "We say 1 sentence and leave." He nodded, already typing. On official letterhead, he wrote, "We will be reading the complete record, including appendices, pursuant to Maryland law." He folded the paper, sealed it in an envelope, and wrote across it in ink, "Read only if challenged." "The press isn't a circus," he said. "It's a mirror. Sometimes you hold it up just to stop the shadows." I tucked the plan into my folio. Timing synced with the clerk's copy retrieval. Every move checked twice. When he stepped out to call the clerk, I sat alone with the quiet. I recorded a short voice memo. Friday, 2 Papathinema, missing Appendix B confirmed. If memory failed later, my own voice would remind me who I was in this moment. I texted Thalia Rooks, the only friend who never flinched at truth. If rumors knock, let them stand on the porch. She replied with a thumbs up and a heart. I smiled. The twin sticky note went behind my license, my proof of self. "I'm not loud," I whispered. "I'm thorough." Outside, the winter air bit harder than it had all week. The courthouse clock across the street struck 3 as my phone buzzed. Unknown caller. I let it go to voicemail. The transcript flashed almost immediately. About the appendix. We should talk. The voice trembled. Female. Cut off by a click. The number showed as blocked. Corporate routing. I stared at the sealed envelope in my hand. Monday. Then I said to the cold, if they wanted a stage, I'd bring a page. I arrived 10 minutes early, the courthouse steps already alive with tripods and murmuring voices. The winter sun caught the limestone, giving it a kind of quiet stage light. I stood where the state seal framed my shoulder, coat buttoned, gloves off. Osric Vale stood beside me, eyes on his watch. 1 sentence, then inside, he said. I nodded. In my folio were my receipts, the blue sticky twin, the bagged USB, all tabs neat and visible. We speak calm or we don't speak, I reminded myself. Callista hovered near the curb with her cousins, her sunglasses hiding what her posture couldn't. A deputy announced, sidewalk is public, steps are for entry. The rules, for once, were on my side. When Osric handed me the sealed envelope, the crowd leaned forward. I read clearly into the waiting microphones. We will be reading the complete record, including appendices, pursuant to Maryland law. Then, because silence needed a companion, I added, paper remembers? No questions? No explanations? Reporters shouted anyway, but my pace never changed. Callista's voice cracked through the noise. There is no appendix. Cameras swung toward her. I didn't flinch. A neighbor squeezed my arm. Proud of you, Miss Marchand? I smiled just enough. Proud of the page. Inside, the marble air smelled of ink, old wood polish, and history. At the records office, the clerk took our retrieval slip and disappeared behind a glass partition. I could see Callista's reflection in the glass, her phone trembling in her hand. The clerk returned with a thick binder and a sealed envelope, stamped certified copy, chain of custody protocol unfolded, timestamp, initials, signatures. Osric requested a review room. The clerk guided us in. The fluorescent lights hummed. We opened the binder, cuts. Appendix B. Its title clear as sunrise. Spousal trust and protective provisions. My name appeared in bold, centered. The words carried weight that even grief couldn't bend. One line glowed like gospel. Any attempted alteration without spousal consent is null and void. I read it aloud, my voice low but sharp enough to slice through decades of pretense. Behind the glass, Callista's color drained. She steadied herself on a chair that wasn't hers. Osric arranged for the document to be read publicly. In the reading room, 3 citizens and 1 reporter sat as witnesses. I asked for a chair with a firm back. My spine and my principles both preferred structure. I put on my glasses and read the clause again, steady as a church bell. When the clerk's stamp landed, it echoed through the room, a sound older Americans recognize, the sound of proof. A relative whispered, misunderstanding. I corrected, gently but firmly. Understanding is printed here. Osric placed removable arrows by key phrases. I signed beside each to prevent substitutions later. I closed the binder like a hymn book. For me, that was omen enough. Back in the hallway, Osric called Severn Trust and Savings. He put the phone on speaker. Referencing compliance ticket 7B21, he said, giving the details. Please freeze all disputed movements pending verification by Mrs. Marchand. The officer's tone was calm, professional. Freeze confirmed, only Mrs. Marchand may authorize future changes, notarized in person. I nodded. Mail the paper confirmation, I added. I keep a binder. A moment later, my phone pinged. Security hold placed. Call if this wasn't you. I smiled. It was me. Osric outlined the next step, letters to counsel. Audit of logins, timestamp review. I listened like someone hearing music in order. Outside, the cameras waited again. I didn't speak this time. I just raised the stamped copy high enough for the flashbulbs to catch the seal. Callista stepped forward, but words deserted her. I met her gaze, then looked away. Mercy and victory share the same silence. A young reporter asked, Any final comment? I said, Just one. Read the next page. The air shifted. I took Osric's arm. The simple gesture said everything about dignity surviving storm. The murmurs blurred behind us. I could finally feel the day warming. We reached the bottom step when my phone buzzed again. A new email flashed from a blocked sender. Subject line, "Statement urgent correction." The preview read, "Regarding events at Severn Trust on Friday," then abruptly cut off. I exhaled slowly. "If they're correcting the record," I said to Osric, "they just admitted there is one." The courthouse clock struck noon, steady and sure. We stepped off the last stone, and for the first time in weeks, the city sounded like my side of the story. The winter sun broke through thin clouds, laying long ribbons of light across Vale and Associates' marble floor. I stood at the window, one hand on the sill, breathing in slow through my nose, letting my shoulders drop. "Breathe, baby," I whispered to myself, the way my mother used to say before a storm. The embossed seal on the certified copy caught the sunlight, a golden ring bouncing against the glass, making a circle that looked whole again. Osric reviewed our checklist, mail receipts, compliance confirmation, clerk's audit schedule. I nodded through it all. No victory, just order. I unlocked my phone and touched the photo of my husband. "We read the next page. Love," I said quietly. Then my phone buzzed again. Local Channel 6 wanted a statement for the evening news. Osric looked up from his tablet. "One line," he said. "No celebration." I smiled. "I've learned to keep victory in lowercase." In the parking lot, the TV crew had already set up. A reporter in a navy coat practiced her stand-up near the curb, the light panel humming against the breeze. I fixed my scarf, folded my hands, and stood just out of frame. For older folks watching, I always share the same lesson. Never show more paper than you plan to read. The reporter asked about background, tone polite but probing. "We rely on documents and the court," I said simply. Nothing more. Over her shoulder, I saw Callista stepping from a black SUV, her PR handler holding a clipboard, whispering. She caught my eye, then pretended to check her phone. The red tally light flicked on. I looked into it and said, "The complete record has been read into view. We ask for privacy to administer the trust." The wind rustled the mic cover, a sound like a sigh. I stepped off Mark before she could speak. "You control your exit. You control your story." The messages came fast after that. My phone blinked like a Christmas tree. Neighbors, church friends, even an old choir buddy from Baltimore. Heart emojis and psalm verses mingled together. I typed each thank you carefully. One cousin sent a gossip blog screenshot calling it elder drama in Annapolis. I texted back, "Rumors have short legs, records walk farther." Moments later, a new voicemail arrived from a number I didn't know. "Mrs. Marchand," a man's voice said, "I notarized something years back, Appendix B. I'm sorry for not coming forward sooner." His tone shook a little. I played it twice, then forwarded it to Osric without touching the file. Chain of custody. Always. The newsroom producer texted next. "Callista wants to read a statement on air." I replied, "Her right, we won't answer tonight." I turned my phone face down on the desk and let the silence reclaim the room. That evening, I drove to the community center for the estate planning seminar. Public, neutral ground. The parking lot was already full. Inside, folding chairs lined up under banners reading Estate Planning 101. I sat halfway back, aisle seat, where my knees wouldn't ache. Sunlight through the west windows turned gold, scattering across the floor like fine dust. Sometimes the world makes its own metaphors. The moderator was explaining probate law when a volunteer leaned close and whispered, "We watched the noon broadcast. Good for you." I squeezed her hand once. Thankful. Then Callista appeared by the side wall, too polished for the setting, conferring with the host. The moderator cleared his throat. "We'll allow a brief statement period before closing." The room's chatter sank to a hush. I folded my hands in my lap. I already knew this was where her version of truth would meet mine. Callista stepped to the podium, a sheet of paper trembling between her fingers. Cameras from the local station tilted toward her. Her first line sounded rehearsed. Today clarified the proper administration of the Marchand Trust. Then she paused and looked up and said, I spoke out of turn. I was unkind to Eveline Marchand. I'm sorry. The air in the room shifted. Some folks nodded. Others just blinked. Older hearts know the difference between performance and confession. But the words were still on record. She continued, I'll cooperate fully with counsel and the bank. That sentence mattered. It carried legal weight. I didn't move or smile. I let the moment land, steady as stone. I wanted her apology to sit where the insult had once stood. When the moderator turned to me with the microphone, I raised an open palm. No statements, just conditions. My voice carried without effort. From this day forward, all communication goes through Osric Vale. No doorstep visits, no use of my name for publicity or fundraising. Murmurs of approval rippled through the audience. I added what every older American knows by heart. Make it right in writing. Osric, seated nearby, spoke clearly. A preservation agreement will be circulated by morning. That gave her apology teeth. I turned once toward Callista, not with anger, but finality. Dignity is a ledger, I said. We balance it with pages, not posts. Her eyes glistened, whether from shame or relief. I didn't need to decide. The camera captured it anyway. Afterward, a local nonprofit director stopped me near the snack table. Good for you, Miss Marchand, she said softly. People saw the truth today. I nodded, folding my coat over my arm. Truth doesn't need makeup, I replied. Someone whispered that Callista's speaker contract had been pulled. Consequences come quiet sometimes. The bank's paper letter was due in a few days. I scribbled a reminder on my fridge calendar. Real ink, real date. A neighbor offered to bring soup that night. I accepted. Allowing kindness is its own kind of strength. I texted Thalia Rooks. Statement made, boundaries set. She wrote back. Proud of you, Miss E. I slid the evening's program into my folio. Its tabs, bank, appendix, media, statement, made a visible timeline of justice earned. Outside, the sodium lights painted the parking lot a soft amber glow. Cold air met me at the door. I breathed it in. Crisp and honest, the reporters had packed up. The vans idled at the curb. As I reached my car, something gray caught my eye beneath the wiper blade. An envelope, no stamp. My name handwritten. The loop of the M told me who it was before I even opened it. Merritt Cole. Inside was a single sheet, typed. One sentence long. You should see what's in the foundation's storage unit. Beneath it, an address and unit number, written in hurried ink. I looked through the windshield at the nearest streetlight, its glare forming a halo on the glass, a ring of light, just like earlier that day. I tucked the note into my folio, fastened my seatbelt, and let the click seal the moment. If there's one more page, I said quietly. I'll read it where the cameras can't. Morning light slid across my table as I reread Merritt's note. The handwriting was rushed, the kind that hides guilt. At 7, I reached the storage unit. The clerk asked if I needed help. I said, I lift what I can. Inside, dust hung like fog. Boxes labeled events, donor assets, admin. I opened one with my glove box cutter. Draft speeches, letters faked under Callista's name, and a binder tagged Appendix Edits. The invoice inside, document services, dated 2 days before the bank incident, I whispered. You always overreach. Photos, timestamps, gloves, all proper. Then I texted Osric. Evidence secured, at Vale and Associates. Osric logged every item, his calm like a metronome. I signed where he pointed. Initials neat, no yelling, paper only, I told him. Always, he said. The paralegal cued certified mail. Green cards fluttering. Osric drafted restitution and a no-contact clause. Repayment to the trust. Resignation from the foundation. I tucked the vendor invoice into my folio. The nails set, I murmured. No hammer needed. Back home. I opened the drawer I'd avoided. A letter to my late husband waited there, written months ago. Never mailed. I read it. About being erased, about choosing calm over chaos. I added one line. We read the next page, and it was mine. Then filed it under personal statements. Yeah, Whoever finds it someday will know I fought with paper, not rage. I closed the drawer softly, as if sealing a prayer. Settlement day came gray and quiet. Callista arrived with counsel, all perfume and pretense. Osric spread the binder. Photos and invoice. Terms clear. Admission of interference. Repayment. Resignation. No contact, I added. And my chair returns to its place. She signed. The pen scratched like a saw through guilt. Osric stamped the last page. The echo ended something deep. I said, "Thank you," and left without ceremony. That night, the community hall smelled of coffee and hope. My workshop sign read, "Senior Voices, paper, power, peace," I told them. "Ask for receipts, keep a folio. Don't sign fast. Quiet isn't weak, it's sharp," a widow said. They called me dramatic. I smiled. They say that when your truth stings. At home, I set dinner for one at the head of the table. The old $15 bill slipped into a jar marked mercy, justice, my way. I texted Osric and Thalia. Loop closed. The window caught the seal's shine, steady as peace. The phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Same blocked code as before. A voicemail icon blinked red. I hesitated, thumb hovering. Outside. Headlights swept across the window, pausing as if watching. I whispered, "Not tonight." Still, the message waited, unread, pulsing like a heartbeat. What if the storm wasn't finished after all?